So I had some sad news today that Nia can't join us tonight. So our facilitator is not here to facilitate us. But I will, do my best. Oh, here's Ms. Denise Lee. That's exciting. I won't say anything else yet until we get a few more people in.
Let me get a piece of paper, actually.
Oh, they're coming.
Is it Amanda?
Yep.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
This is Denise Lee. Nice to see you.
How are you?
Yeah, and boy, have I enjoyed. Fine, thank you. And I've enjoyed the book 1,000 times so far. I just picked it up, And
That's awesome.
Actually, I have put it down, but then I picked it right back up, and then I put it down, and then I picked it right back up. So I'm very happy to be here tonight.
That's great.
Oh, start videoing. Wait a minute. I guess I'm in there now. Am I in there? Yeah.
Yes, there you are. Hello. Looking lovely.
I'm sorry. I had to uncross myself off so I could be seen with everybody else. So nice to see you, for sure.
Nice to see you. So I was just saying that Dr. Nia can't make it tonight. There's an important meeting at the kids' school. So I will not even try to fill that role. I will just, tell you guys a few things I know, and then if we, if we get stuck, I'll try to think of a question. But really, I just want everybody to talk about the book among themselves as much as possible. I was so excited about this book. This first thing I can tell you is that because I loved her first book, The Mothers, from a few years ago. And so I was really excited when I saw she had a new book coming out, and immediately was like, oh, chose it. Hi, Ellen. I was saying Dr. Nia can't be here tonight, so I'm going to try to not be her at all, because that's impossible on so many levels. But just give you guys a little bit of background about what how excited I was about this book, because I loved her first book. And and then after I read this, I loved it, and I chose it to be the subscription book for the Bookstores Book Club this month. And in the process, I was like, this is such a good book. That would be such a great book to discuss with the Well-Read Black Girl Book Club. So I reached out to Nia and said, why don't we try doing a Zoom one? Let's see what happens. So the good news is we've, distributed some copies around, and even if everybody can't make this tonight, at least a bunch of people in our community are reading it because of our Well-Read Black Girl Book Club. And we're here. So that's happening. And then the other thing I was going to share is that I just learned that Britt Bennett, the author, there was a bidding war for film rights for the book. And just like yesterday, she got like a 7-figure deal with HBO. So
that's amazing.
Go her.
Go.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So first, Denise, you were saying you can't put it down barely. So maybe, I don't know, what do people think? Does anybody have anything they want to say right off the bat?
Well, I will say one thing. I've had a lot of interesting ups and downs and ins and outs, because I'm back teaching full-time this school year after being retired for 11 years. I went back to teaching second grade at Bev Martin School. So I know that I was listening to Audible a lot more in between all this brand new online and digital and 4 different names for virtual learning. So I'm not quite finished the school year, believe it or not. I have 2 major things still to do. But when I came in to pick up the book the other day, I said, oh, MG, there's only 1 more copy there. And I don't know if you had any more in the back, but I grabbed it and I drove with my husband up to Niagara, New York. And that's where I am right now, just for a couple of days. And I picked it up and put it down, and picked it up and put it down and picked it up. And I really have enjoyed it thus far. I love the characters, the flow of the book, just the feeling of the book. I'll tell you one thing, June 26th, just a couple of days back, my husband and I would be in New Orleans for 3 weeks. We go on vacation there to the Essence Music Festival. Actually, I have on a t-shirt that says 25th anniversary of the Essence Music Festival. We've been there. This would have been year 20.
Oh, man.
And so New Orleans is just a beautiful place. And we really travel beyond New Orleans for Essence Music Festival. We do all kinds of historical Black museums. We go to, we were going to the lynching museum in Montgomery, Alabama. We drive away and we come back for the Essence Music Festival. But I should be in New Orleans right now, and I think that's why the book is in my hands, because of the New Orleans connection. And just a little. But anyway, I could say more, but I don't want to take up all the spot, because I don't know how long we're on for tonight. Maybe I could jump back in when somebody else says something that maybe I could connect to big time. But I've loved the book, and I'm so happy to be here tonight, for sure, with everybody.
Thank you.
I'm going to let somebody else share. I'll mute myself. Okay.
I'll just out myself. I'll just out myself and say I've only read the first 30 pages, but I am really drawn in, and I really wanted to just be with everybody tonight. Since I've missed when we were meeting in person, I think I missed a few. And I'm excited to keep reading it. And I just wanted to be with folks tonight.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Has anybody else in the crowd read the whole book yet? Oh, good. Most of us. That's great. Great. So does anybody else have any initial things to say, or?
And we just so again, I like Miss Lee, I picked it up and finished it in 2 days, right? So, and then I'm like, oh wait, I should have refreshed myself. So there's Stella and Desiree are the twins, right? And then what is Desiree's daughter's name?
Jude.
Jude, that's right. And okay. So all right, I gotta think about what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think I have The Sweeter the Juice and the James McBride book. I can't remember the name of it. I'm just looking at it at my bookshelf right now. And so I have read nonfiction on mixed stories, mixed race stories, but I'm not a fiction book with this kind of context. And so I was really struck as a mixed race person myself. I was struck by a whole town set. So, and they didn't really go through how the town was kept mixed race so intently, and so I'm assuming by social pressure. So I was struck by that, and I just thought of some things. I'm trying to look for it desperately in the beginning on how the colorism is so steeped in how the town's founded, and in the families and the mothers. And I just remember my mother, who's Ghanaian, Ashanti, she met my dad was in Peace Corps, and they met while he was in teaching math in her town. And he's Irish Catholic and she's Methodist, Ghanaian, Ashanti, Pentecostal. And she always used to say, stay out of the sun. She used to give me bleaching, she used to use bleaching cream on herself. She still does. My dad puts it on her, actually. My sister and I are always stop enabling this insanity. But it kind of struck me in certain places. I felt good in my uncomfortableness in some of the dialogue, and how part of half of me is steeped in such privilege, and then half of me is steeped in devastating colonialism and racism. And so it was a really complicated, interesting read for me. And I don't know how anybody else who may have mixed heritage felt, but it was so juicy and the uncomfortable feeling in a good way, like that feeling like, oh my God, I am how much you're participating in this whole, all of this structure and this racism. So by your very being, actually, your very body represents some of it. So anyway.
Yeah. It's pretty intense. Yeah, I wondered how much that would resonate with different people. I attended another Zoom book club conversation where Gloria Edim, the actual well-read Black girl herself, was interviewing Britt Bennett a few weeks back. And Britt Bennett said that the whole basis of the story was around the idea of this town. That's where the root of the story came from. And it was actually a story she'd heard from her mom. Her mom had grown up in Georgia and knew of a town like this.
Oh my God.
So that it was a real place that had this.
I wondered. Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting.
So now that I've collected myself, so I thought the Jude growing up stigmatized by other Black folk, right? I think really helped her develop that compassionate character that so helped Reese, like that allowed her to be able to fall in love with Reese and really help the character Reese with the transition and everything that character was going through. But I think, like, or at least my impression is like, even though she was where her mother grew up, because she was so much darker in this town that valued lightness, right? The lighter the better, really helped her develop that, compassion to really be able to help Reese.
I just wanted to say that, I don't know if you could hear me.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that I got up to page, and when we get off, I'll start reading again, up to page 127. And I just wanted to say that I really thought that Early was a very, very interesting person. I really liked him to where I am now in the book. I really found him to be very sincere and thoughtful and kind.
Uh-oh, you froze a little, but we'll. Oh. So Miss Denise, it looks like you froze.
With the mom.
Oh, go ahead.
And, but he was kind and thoughtful. I don't know if you could hear me.
Yep.
Yep. I thought that he was kind to the young lady, that he was very kind to her, and she liked him and in an interesting way. And I just liked Early. I just thought I'd say that, at least up to where I am now. I thought he was an interesting character. Maybe I'll find something out later on. I don't know.
I'm gonna not tell you
into it, but I just.
Well, don't worry, Denise. He stays the same. Don't worry, Denise. You're gonna love it all the way through.
Yay!
And I don't think it's a spoiler alert to say, that he follows her out on her way somewhere, and you'll find out. And I just love how he handles, like, you don't want to be with someone who's trying to hide you. Like, no, like, don't. He's such a great father mentor for her, I think. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the spoiler alert. I love it. Thanks, guys.
And
thank you.
How Early takes care of Stella and Desiree's mom throughout the book.
Yeah.
Like just really like helped, strengthen his character.
Wow.
I mean, I feel like this book had so many, like every character was capable of telling like, it's almost as if each character in some way hit on all of the themes. Like it's almost a miracle that somebody could write that well. But every single character, if you think about colorism, if you think about the idea of passing, if you think about the idea of generations and how the actions of one generation impact another generation, if you think about just how individual choices that you can make kind of on a dime impact your life forever or impact other lives, like all of the characters in some way do all of those things, show you all of those things. I think that she's just really a great writer for that.
Yeah, and the intersection of abuse and queer people and the struggles, and then racism and colorism and passing, all of it kind of blends in. And I was like, how did she do this without it being very like all of these kind of tropes? And she did it beautifully, though. It was so elegantly done, and you're sitting in shock watching it all kind of come out. So anyway.
And when you're talking about the intersectionality of all those different things, like, and as a writer, I think you're right. Like, how could she manage to keep that intersectionality so true in her characters throughout the text?
Yeah, without it being heavy-handed.
Right.
It was so elegant. It's just, yeah, the characters just kind of come together. And then as a person who is othered, and in Jude's position, of course, the character of Reese would, it's an interesting, not of course, I guess they don't have to have met, but it felt that they naturally would be drawn together as other, especially at a UCLA campus, where, anyway, I don't want to get too.
I think the one thing for me that was really interesting.
Don't mind me. Just go for it. I want to hear it because I am going to read it. So don't hold back, anybody.
Okay.
Go for it,
Katie.
I think. I mean, I feel like. I don't know. I feel like this is the best book I've read in, I don't know, maybe since Ask Again, Yes. It's a masterpiece of a book. Well, anyway, but what my observation was that a couple of things. One is it really brought me to a lot of the books we've read collectively together. And I ended the book with an important realization for me that I was thinking about that scene in Jacqueline Woodson's Red at the Bone where the little girl jumps on the stairs on the one that's filled with the gold. Sounds different. And I've been really thinking a lot about the sort of idea of what historical traumas people are forced to carry and which ones people can choose to like think about or let go of. And the way she has these characters choose and not choose to either face their past or not, I thought was beautifully done and fascinating. But I think what I really took away a lot of is how much isms in general divide us from ourselves, right? So this idea that because of the ism, you can't be whole. And even Jude and Reese's relationship, as beautiful as that relationship is and as deeply moving as I found it, there's these moments where they're going past each other, they're sailing past each other, and they can't bridge that gap, even though they're on shared ground. I mean, they have a shared trauma, that same shearing from their self, from their fundamental self, I guess I don't know if that's more than just as an observation I made, but it's something that's really stayed with me is like, how does it heal? I don't know, but you know, that early characters knowing that, like, I can't remember the mom's name, but she doesn't like him. She wants him off the porch, but he'll care for her anyway. That sort of.
Is her name Loretta?
Yeah.
Is the mom's name Loretta?
I don't know. I just think of her as Maman.
Yeah.
But I think the mother's name is Adele.
Adele. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Miss Adele. Yeah, like how caring he is for Miss Adele. I wonder, you know, that's what moved me to tears, that final bit of them caring for Miss Adele in her final days, despite that sort of everything that was like working to divide them structurally. Anyway, I'll stop talking now, but I loved this book. I loved it. I want to read it like 17 times more.
I agree. I was really kind of shocked at how easy it was to read. I know people have talked about like picking it up and putting it back down and like maybe not finishing it. And I picked it up and put it down a couple times, but I read like 150 pages each time. It's not, it wasn't like a slow, a couple pages here. It was like, no, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read this book. And then I finished it last night, as I always do. But I think part of what struck me is that I thought there would be more anger, I think, and I thought there would be more kind of like drama than there was. And at first I was kind of like, oh, well, okay, maybe I wanted something a little spicier. But at the end, I really appreciated it because it's so easy to like sensationalize anger and kind of brush aside like the real kind of emotional growth that these characters have gone through. And so by the time I finished it, I was like, you know, I'm glad that it ended the way it did, and it was kind of bittersweet, but there was none of that like smashing, sensationalized anger to it, which I thought was really nice. And yeah, I agree. This is, I missed a couple at the beginning of this year, a couple book club meetings, but this one and Red at the Bone, I feel like are very similar in my experience of reading them. So.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. First, hi, my name is Amanda. I've actually never really come to a meeting before because it always conflicted with class. So, anyway, my name is Amanda. I work at Cornell and I'm also a grad student now. So, I don't like doing these things. But I have read the books. I've just never gone through. But anyway, another aspect of this book I think that really resonated with me is just like coming from a small town. So I'm actually from Corning, New York. So it's close by, but it's much smaller than Ithaca. And it's very different in its population. Like I wouldn't say that it's like this town where it's like really light skinned, but I would say that there's mostly mixed people or light-skinned people like myself that kind of make up the Black population. Like we are Black, and for people that, you know, I've then met here in Ithaca or at Cornell, it's like, no, you're light-skinned. And so I've had to learn in that sense that kind of privilege and colorism that comes with that, which I sort of already knew from, you know, people, you know, telling me that my skin is nice, like it's beautiful, and someone else's isn't, which I didn't understand as a kid, much like these girls, I guess, when they were kids. But I also think it is that isolation of a small town that you live in. And maybe some people, I don't know if you're from like bigger cities or if you're from Ithaca, but, you know, Ithaca is unique in that, to me, it's not small because I'm from Corning, but it's also not, you know, it's not totally not diverse because of our student populations. So it's just interesting, these different lifestyles coming together, especially when Jude does go off to UCLA. And like, it's very easy for her to get into an LGBTQ community. and go to drag shows. Like, it's very easy. Wherein, like, the small town that her mom's from is probably very strange. And they didn't talk about that too much. But I think that other aspect of being from a small town is really interesting in this book.
Definitely. Definitely. So one of the things that I think it kind of happens off the page a little bit. It's not like in some other novels I've read where but their father is lynched, right? Their father is lynched, and these two girls see it. And I keep thinking about, so what is the influence of that on everything that comes after? And I don't really have an answer. I just think it's interesting to think about, the idea that they kept quiet, the idea that they stuck together. Some of these pieces, the fact that they were so close after that, and then it makes the wrenching apart more obvious and more bitter and horrible when it happens, I think, partly. But I'm just curious if anybody else had any thoughts about how that plays into the book or anything.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Katie who said this, but yeah, the trauma each person has with them. So the girls in that serious trauma peeking through the wood slats and seeing their dad taken away, and you can't choose to unsee that. And Reese's trauma with his abusive father, and then I was struck by what we carry, what we choose, what we can and cannot get rid of in our process of becoming adults. And it's Stella, right? That she passes. Yeah. She's got nightmares, and it passes to her daughter Kennedy, where that little girl has nightmares. So it's like that generational trauma going through her into her. I had chills when I read that part, because I was like, there it is. Like, there's that little girl experiencing that. She doesn't even know. Obviously, she didn't see it, but it's in her body. And then I also think Amanda said something powerful too about being mixed in her town and being Black. Like in this town, in their town, they're priding their light skin, but their dad got lynched. He's Black. Like, it doesn't matter how little bit of Black in them, and they look white and they have red hair. They're describing the town people having red hair, and that was still Black. It doesn't matter. So I do think that this is it was really interesting on both of those levels. The trauma that the characters had in them, in their bodies, and then also the idea that you're white, your light skin doesn't protect you. At least in that town.
Yeah.
And the fear, was that so striking? Couldn't you almost smell Stella's fear of being found out? I mean, she wrote that character so like when she gets to the suburbs and she's so terrified of someone finding out.
And then when the neighbor moved in,
yes,
or how that like just brought everything up, stirred everything up again for Stella. And like her neighbor knew, right? She didn't out her, but she definitely knew. She definitely
And
knew.
Stella said, she's like, Black people always know. You can just tell. There's always something. You're like, is that romance?
Interesting.
But do you think that she made that decision when she was in New Orleans to pass because like that was interesting, like her and Desiree at that point were starting on separate paths, and then when she made that decision to leave, like that was traumatic in itself.
I think the thing that was really striking to me about that whole thing, I loved that middle section of Stella in the suburbs, but you know, Stella had that extra trauma of getting raped by the guy they were working for. And I don't think Desiree did. And I think that divided them, right? And the thing that, you know, is like really interesting about this book is like the early character is, you know, stays through the book. But, you know, the other thing that hovers on the outside is like the violence of men against women, and in this case, you know, women of color, which is also something I think about a lot in my daily life, you know, working with folks. But yeah, I think, you know, that was clearly something, again, that divided her further from everything, from herself, from her sister, from that connection to the community. And I think, I mean, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but propelled her to flee in that way. Yeah, so I don't know, it's just, yeah, traumas on top of traumas, I think. It's really...
So I'm like, right now I'm reading another book, and of course I can't remember the name of it, but it's about white sharecropper girl and a black, I guess she would be a maid, although not a slave, and they're both pregnant at the same time. The maid by the white girl's father, and the white girl by just a neighbor boy, and they're
are you reading the 12 Mile Straight?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Eleanor's book.
That's Eleanor's book. Eleanor, who just stepped away because she didn't want to get any more spoilers because she hadn't finished this book, but she wrote the 12 Mile Straight.
Oh, well, okay. Well, but those babies are being raised as twins in the curiosity.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Of one's white and one's black, and how could that be, right? But the point being is the twin thing, right? So like that, this is like hard to believe that they can honestly do that, like honestly be apart and not have contact.
Yeah.
And then when Jude spilled the red wine when she saw Stella walk in the party, like, would that floor you or not? Somebody that walks in and looks exactly like your mother?
Well, I'm an identical twin, and I can't wait to read the rest of this book. And just my thoughts around, just even in reading the beginning parts and then hearing all the stuff everybody's talking about, it's like, oh, what are the pivotal things that happen in our lives? And then specifically in the lives of sisters, you know, or brothers who are identical twins, that then really change the course of the life, you know, and, you know, trauma, you know, that just pivot people in particular directions based on what they survive. And then how much of that is sort of the transgenerational transmission of trauma, and then how each twin might embody and or deal with that, and how that binds them and how it also may separate them.
Right.
It's just sort of my, in sitting in this conversation, not having read very much of the book, and then just my own life experience, it feels really very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, the sister relationship part is definitely, in family in general, but the sisters, and there's a line along the lines of where Desiree is thinking, and she said, what made her so easy to give away? Like, what could possibly have made her sister make the choice that she was easier to give away than something else, you know? And she was saying that in response to Stella having come back and said, well, after a while, I just couldn't because I had family, right? Well, yeah, you had family before too, right? So I thought that was really interesting.
And Stella's daughter, Kennedy, right? Like the fact that she continues to have a relationship with Jude beyond and almost unbeknownst to her mother, although I think her mother had a inkling that they were continuing communicating, but it's like found family, and they were able to maintain a relationship.
Yeah, it made me think of twins having I was thinking about that, and Ellen, you could probably speak to this, or maybe if you have kids and your sister has kids, but I wondered if the cousins could sense that they were family, like if they didn't know right away. It just made me wonder, because their mothers are identical twins, so it made me think, was Kennedy drawn to her at that party for like some, like, did she sense something in the, like a family connection? So I don't know.
I bet.
Yeah.
My children, I have daughters who are 13 and 17, and my sister has sons who are now 22 and about to be 27. And they call each other, well, my girls call the boys, they're bro cousins, because they're basically like brothers and cousins. And they have this familial bond, and they all look alike.
Oh, I love that.
Which is a very sweet thing. It's very fierce. I mean, the connection between them is actually really fierce.
I wondered about that.
Well, I mean, you think about the fact that they're both, that both of the daughters, both Jude and Kennedy, have completely different traumas than their mothers had, right? Their experiences, the things they're missing, the losses they have, but they have them, right? But and part of that is connection, right? They're both missing connection to family or a broader community. You know, Jude, because she's in this place where she's looked down upon because she's too dark, and Kennedy because her mother is just so silent and far away and doesn't, share that history. So they both really want that. So it's interesting that they move forward, but then even as they move forward, it's still a secret relationship. Neither of them tells their mothers that they're still communicating with each other. And it's like, there's a line that says the secrets were the only language they spoke.
Yeah.
So even as they're making this choice that is, in some ways very affirming for each of them and connecting, they're still also carrying on this.
There's something that's prohibited.
Carrying on secrets.
They have some kind of inner knowledge of that there's has to be a prohibition or a disavowing of that kind of connection. I mean, I'm making this up because I haven't read it, but from what you're talking about, what you're sharing.
Definitely.
I think it's really interesting in light of the current historical context we're living in and through. I'm thinking about the Kennedy character and the idea that she inherits the trauma without knowing what the trauma is, but it's in her. And, I just think about that too, like which traumas you can pick up and which ones you can't, which ones you can turn from and which ones you have to face. But, I think about like if they were allowed to know their histories, like really understand their histories, would that be a way that they could reconnect to the lost bits of themselves and their families? And I wonder too, so much of what I was told or taught about the world or inherited from the atmosphere is lies, right? Like untruths, like ideas that somebody else had but were given to me or I believed because I didn't think about it, and how much that connects me and disconnects me from other people. But it's still there whether or not you're gonna look at it, right? Like I have now a lot of books on my shelf and I need to read them, but it's a love-hate relationship because I go to the book and I'm like, oh, like I feel choked by it, and then I'm like, okay, but I have to go there. And I wonder how much that's played out in this book, which is sort of that connection to history but not understanding it or knowing that you're missing it. You missed it, like someone lied to you or you inherited something or you just believe something you shouldn't have, and how do you unpack that and where do you go to get to move to a place where you can reconnect? I think the way she tells that story is like very beautiful. It's very very well done.
Yeah.
And something I found interesting from what you said before, Katie, was like, I feel like, Stella, with her trauma that she's had specifically with white people, right? And then she kind of becomes one, or she's acting like one. It's like she is like running away from what was making her experience those traumas by becoming the other person and feeling like she was the person in power. But at the same time, how could she be when she never like really faced those traumas, but also maybe became part, I don't know how to say this, like it became part of the trauma by acting white, and then also realizing that, she has a white husband and like a white daughter. And it's interesting from Kennedy's point of view too, that she also felt that. And I wonder if it's because she kind of like felt the distance with her mom, like right? Because I feel like usually, maybe this also comes from not having a strong connection with a mother figure, but I don't know what her connection to her dad was, I guess. But I think in that, it was also really confusing for Stella. Like she never confronted her traumas, and at the same time, like that manifested in different ways.
So we know the Kennedy's dad called Stella out of why are you hanging across at the neighbors at one point in the book. So I think that he was not comfortable. And so Amanda, one thing that you said that particularly in everything that's going on in the world is like by her becoming white, and I put that in quotes, was she just re-traumatizing herself over and over again by trying to hide that? And then is that then the trauma that Kennedy felt all the time? And then particularly, having, being raised as she was raised in this.
Right.
Yeah, someone mentioned fear and how each of the twins kind of carries fear. And I feel like when Stella made the decision to, do this for real and like commit to passing and become white, she kind of took the fear, which until then had been external, right? Like violence against her, and turned it inward. Because I feel like once she passed, all of her fear was from being found out, right? She carried this guilt and took all of that external fear. So she didn't escape the fear, it just transformed how she was feeling and kind of lost the ability to have those authentic connections. That's why she's so distant from her husband and her daughter. And then when the neighbors moved in, I think she let go of that a little bit, but subconsciously, and didn't know. But I do agree that when she made that decision, she did kind of transform the fear and the trauma, and you can't escape it. Like there are factors internally and externally that she can't escape, and I think she knows that. But there's so many lies that we can tell ourselves to make it feel okay. And just the thought of her doing that like every day, to the point where she just can't even face it when approached by approached by Jude or Kennedy. She just was like, no, that's not true. But like she knows that it's going to come back to bite her. And I think that was really interesting with Stella as a character, especially when the neighbors moved in.
So, go ahead.
Okay.
You go.
I just wanted to say, first of all, Chris and Lisa, could you give me the title of the book that you mentioned earlier, Chris, Miss Barley? And I'm calling you Miss Barley because of the teaching. You're teaching at BJM, and I could say Miss Barley or South Hill. But the title of the twin book that you both of you mentioned, I'd love to get it at some point.
Yeah, me too. Can you email it, Lisa? Because I can't grab my pencil.
Okay, I've got it in the.
Yeah, maybe you could email it to us.
I will. And I just put it in the chat too for anyone who's interested. It's Eleanor Henderson, who teaches at Ithaca College. She's the head of the writing department there. She's on our board at the bookstore, and she's been helping us run events. And she was reading this book, and so she was very much in on the conversation. But then she realized she didn't want to get it spoiled. But her most recent book was The 12 Mile Straight. So
definitely, I'm about halfway through it. Definitely worth the read.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, to have those conversations. I was also going to mention another book. This book made me want to go back and read a book that I've known about for a long time, but hadn't read, which is a classic of Black literature called Passing by Nella Larson.
Okay.
I'll send that out too, but it's literally a novel written, I think it was like 1929. And it's about two friends from a small town, and one of them, I'm trying to see what the original date was, and one of them ends up becoming someone who passes and marries a white man, and they run into each other again in Chicago or New York, I can't remember, it goes back and forth. But this piece around the way that it was very informative to me to read this book after having read The Vanishing Half, because it really, one of the scenes that it really shed light on was that whole piece around her being drawn to the family across the street and really wanting that connection and connecting. And this book talks about that a lot. She, a lot about, there's like lines like, it always happens once they pass over, they want to come back and they miss people and they want, so it's interesting to read this one from 100 years ago almost, and think about so many things similar.
Yeah. I did want to just say one thing. Having gotten up to page 127 and counting, because I'm surely when we get off, I'm going to go right back to it this evening and try to finish it up with it tonight, tomorrow-ish. But I did want to just say that I really love the way Desiree loved Jude. Desiree loved Jude despite her being blue-black. All of those terrible things that the kids said about her in school were just so hurtful. We're teachers, Chris, you know about stuff in school, how mean sometimes kids could be and the things that they might say. But this was over the top for me as an educator to hear what some young people said about another person because of their skin color. I was just so hurt. And I'll be honest with you, my mom is, I don't like to say fair. What does fair skin mean? Right. But she was much, much, much lighter than I was. And my baby sister Camille, she's maybe 60 now. And when she came home as a brand new baby from the hospital, we said, oh my God, Ma, we came home from lunch. We went to Catholic school. We're from Brooklyn. So we came home from lunch, and my mom came home with this brand new baby, and we went to peek inside of this bassinet, and we saw this little white baby in the bassinet. And we said, Ma, is she yours? Who is she? We know she's a girl. We know you had a baby, but she's white. And we were just so tickled. My mom looked at us and said, hello. Yes, this is your baby sister. And her name is Camille Dentler. We call her Lee right now. And she was white. And my mom, so she's very fair. And I am very dark. I wasn't the color of the color blue, black, and all of the colors that we heard Jude describe as. But I was very dark, and my brother was very dark too, and then there are 5 of us, and the skin gradation colors are varied. We're a very mixed, colorful family. And so I loved the way Desiree loved her for who she was as a child, picked her up and had her on her hip. And it was complicated. It was definitely complicated, but she didn't turn her out and leave her behind and abandon her on the train and, you know, kill her or this or that. She kept that little blue, black little angel with her. And that I was very sensitive to and loved. I don't know what happens in the back of the book if something big happens, but I love the way her mom, very, very, very white. She took all of the things that the townspeople said about her with this little black little baby girl, 6, 7 years, and she walked high with her head up with the little girl no matter what. I was moved by that. And my mom had to say to me as a little girl, Denise, yes, you are who you are. And you just remember this. The blacker the berry, the sweeter the wine. That's what my, and I'm going to be 70 in a minute. And that's what my mom told me as a child. You're beautiful, you're gorgeous, and you will be forever. That's what some parents have had to say to their children, or maybe not, I'm not sure, don't ask me, but that's what my mom had to say to me, aside from my brothers and sisters, about the color of my skin. And I turned out to be damn straight and strong and caring and loving and strong for who I am and what have you. It's very complicated, I tell you that.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd share how I felt about Desiree's love for her very, very black little chocolate daughter.
But Denise,
I don't know. Anybody else has anything to say about that?
Do you think though it was because do you think it was because she was beaten and she knew she had to escape the abusive relationship and protect her little girl? Like that mama bear instinct coming out, that she was able to get that strength, even knowing she was going back to this place where her daughter would be looked upon negatively, but she had enough strength to keep her safe.
Could very well be. Not only that, her going back to her home with her mom. Her mom was like, what the hell? Who is this? What, like, how and what? Where did you get her from? Who is she? And then her grandmother turned out to be pretty warm, you know, in a number of little instances. I mean, she wasn't that bad. She wanted to help her or spoke to her in nice ways at times, you know, or had a different kind of feeling for the little chocolate, beautiful little girl who lots of people just kept talking about as navy, blue, black, blah, blah, blah. I tell you one thing, I give Jude a lot of credit for hanging tough and hanging in there, because for somebody weaker and not able to stand on her 2 long, lanky, running legs, she could have just keeled over, because what people said was very, very, very hurtful. I have felt that when I was younger, and I could be very honest and say that. So just thought I'd bring some of that up.
And I think she came back to, she hated between the 2 of them, I think that Desiree hated the color. She kept saying that I hate that town, it's color struck. So for since she was little, she sensed some kind of hypocrisy in all of it. And so I think she was almost an act of rebellion as she held her head and she walked that baby through the town that first day. It was like, oh, look at this. She's not embarrassed. She's not trying to hide this little baby.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to 8 o'clock, so I don't want to take a lot of time. think it's been really great talking about this book. I'm excited for those of you who still get to finish it. How did you guys feel about, I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to do in-person gatherings for a while. So do you feel okay about us trying to do some more Zoom ones?
Yes, please. Can we? I really appreciate this. Like, it's helping in so many ways to feel connected.
And I also have some news. So Gloria Edim, the founder of Well Read Black Girl, is going to participate in a Zoom event for the bookstore.
Wow.
In which we are also going to be, she's going to be on a panel with Dr. Nia and a student of Dr. Nia's, and with the author, the young adult author, Elizabeth Acevedo.
Oh, so her books, we read that with the Brooklyn crew.
Yeah.
Poet X?
Yes.
Great
So
book.
she's, for those of you who haven't read Elizabeth Acevedo, I said she's a young adult author, but you will love her. Every book of hers is amazing. The Poet X, The Fire on High, and her new book is called...
Could you put her name in the chat?
Yeah, I will. And her new book is called Clap When You Land. And I know Dr. Nia has been reading it with a group of young women in the community this summer. So we're going to have that coming up sometime in August. So that's going to be really exciting.
Awesome.
I was really, I mean...
And we get front row Zoom seats?
You betcha. So I wanted you to know about that ahead of time. I will share her name. I will share the 2 books we talked about. Eleanor, we were talking about your book a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, I'm reading it right now.
It just happened because she's reading it right now. And
I didn't want to hear any spoilers because I'm loving this book so far.
Yeah. And then I'll also share, Eleanor came across that Britt Bennett is part of another Zoom event that's happening at 8. So I'll share the link to that in case anybody wants to go listen to her some more in the meantime. But thank you all for coming. And I don't know what our next book will be. We'll figure something out, but we'll definitely keep it happening. And it's really great to have these conversations with everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Elise, can you put the other book in? Can you put it in the chat?
Oh, Elizabeth Acevedo?
Yeah, Elizabeth Acevedo.
Yeah. And Lisa, before you go, is it a Zoom with Britt Bennett?
I think so. I think it is. So I'm going to send that in just a minute and you can check, but I'm pretty sure it's like a Zoom and she's on with a couple of other authors.
And when is that, Lisa? When is
Right
that?
now.
Like right now. It's already
Right. I just saw that she happens to be reading with 2 other authors in this series called The Antibody. It's another Zoom event. It's a Brooklyn reading series that she happens to be participating in right now.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll be sending that email out right away.
The site?
Yeah.
Okay, way to go. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Good night.
There we go.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Hey, thanks.
Bye.
Okay, I'll just look up the book.
Thanks for setting
Thank
this up. I'm so glad I came back.
Oh, yeah. See you guys.
Bye. Enjoy your downtime.
Bye. Uh-huh.
Okay, got him.
Okay. See you
Thanks,
later.
Lisa.
See you
Bye.
soon. Okay.
Bye.
That was